You're joining the Loudr Lawyer Network, the podcast where we sit down with the law firm owners, attorneys, and visionaries that are making the most noise in the legal landscape nationwide to find out the secrets to their success. Other podcasts think they're getting loud, but we're getting louder. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Loudr Lawyer Network, where we help attorneys scale to million-dollar months through powerful strategies and connections. And this morning, I'm pleased and honored to welcome Justin Elsner. Justin, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man. You're in Washington, right? Seattle, Washington?
Correct. Yeah, that's our main area is Seattle, but we help people all throughout the state of Washington.
Usually I take individuals back. I like to know the moments before. And with that being said, I know that in high school, you had a serious car accident, and it was a series of events that happened. Take us back to that moment.
I mean, it's crazy because I can remember that like it was yesterday, even though that was over 20 years ago. You know, I was heading to school with my friend, and we were coming to an intersection, and the lady coming basically head on thought it was a four-way stop, and that then we were going to stop, and so she could turn left, and it wasn't a four-way stop intersection, so she turned left right in front of us, and I remember jerking the wheel to the right, thinking that I could somehow avoid it, but no, we contacted, and then airbags deployed, and the vehicle just kind of kept going and down kind of a little ravine area into a parking lot area of a church, and you know, I mean, you remember the smell of the gunpowder from the airbag and just smoke everywhere and just kind of really not knowing what's going on. And, you know, definitely took me a minute to kind of figure out what was going on. And then from there, I mean, luckily I was young. And so, you know, I wasn't tragically hurt and everything, but I still ended up having to get treatment for probably almost 2 years to finally get myself better. And so, you know, it definitely impacted my college life and not being able to do some sports and things like that, and just kind of having the pain and dealing with that through trying to study. And so it was, yeah, I mean, definitely a defining moment in my life that I remember.
Yeah. When you were injured, obviously it sounds like you had horrific injuries from that accident. And I found it very interesting that you ended up in a church lot. So I know the good Lord was looking down after you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could have been so much worse. I mean, it really, really could have. You know, I think if we had really hit her head on, you know, it would have been a lot worse. And yeah, I mean, there were trees we could have collided with, all kinds of other little things that a matter of feet would have made it even worse. So yeah, I agree. We had somebody watching over us that day.
Yes. As you were going through this healing process, with being able to not participate in sports, not being able to study, did you take pain pills? Were you on opioids?
I had some muscle relaxants initially, but otherwise just kind of suffered through it. You know, I wasn't really a big fan of trying to just mask pain, and so, you know, we just kind of had to deal with it, and lots of stretching, lots of physical therapy, massages, you know, you name it. That was, you know, a regular part of my life for a couple of years.
Yeah. What did you hurt, if you don't mind sharing?
It's, you know, neck and back mostly. You know, just kind of beat up there. And so, you know, as we were getting treatment, is what the providers explained to me, is when you work on one area, sometimes when that shifts the pain somewhere else. And so, you know, the pain would be moving throughout the body, and so having to sit in class would make things a little bit more difficult, a little bit stiffer, and things like that too. And so, so yeah, I just kind of had to do a lot of various types of treatment.
Yes, I'm currently dealing with treatment right now. I was April 17th. I was T-boned.
Oh,
Didn't
no.
see a car coming or anything, and I was T-boned and spun around. I call it like being rattled in a cage. It was. And I'm dealing with those same things, injections and all types of things, physical therapy. So I understand that's a horrific thing to have to go through. during that time that this happened, you had the support of your family and things of that nature, your friends. What led you to decision to going into law?
Well, as part of that experience, my friend, they had a family friend of theirs, was an attorney. And so, he encouraged us to reach out to him. And that was my first experience with a lawyer and dealing with that process. And it was extremely helpful to have somebody on my side. I didn't have a clue what to do from day one with my car, with my injuries, getting bills paid, how any of that was going to work. And so luckily we did have the help of an attorney through the process. And I can't imagine having tried to do it all on my own, because he knew the process, knew how to do things, was able to walk us through the entire process and take care of us. The insurance company fought us. We had to really had some battles with them and making sure everything got paid, but luckily that attorney helped us through it. And so that really was my first exposure to the law and what lawyers can do for people.
Oh, so that was your accident was your journey.
Absolutely.
Into going, when you say you had trouble with the insurance companies, did you have to, was there immediate fault? Why was the insurance company being so resistant to taking care of you? Was there, do you remember?
Yeah, initially it was more as the ongoing. I think they kind of took the attitude of, this kid is young, like, why does he need all his treatment? Why is he still treating? And that's where, a lot of the issue came up. And it was, at the time I was working, I at a grocery store and going to school. I wanted to live an active, productive life, but, the accident prevented that. And there was no part of me that wanted to, spend some weekends just laid up in pain and things like that. And so, it was surprising that the insurance company would doubt that I need the treatment that I needed. It wasn't fun for me. You go to school, you go to class, and then you go on to treatment. And, like I said, that's not something that I wanted to do. There was my life I wanted to live.
No, absolutely. So during that process, you're experiencing all these things. Is that when you decided, hey, I want to go and help individuals that will be in this? Was it like like they say, you have that dawning moment, right? When you're like, it clicks, like, oh, this is what I want to do. Did that immediately, tell me how that happened.
No, I think it was more progression of things. I mean, my dad grew up in Germany. He was a paralegal there before moving to the US in his early 20s. And so I think a little bit of the interest in law is just kind of in my DNA. And so, as a kid, I enjoyed, watching like the O.J. Simpson trial. I mean, I was really tied into that and really watched that probably more than the average kid. And so there was kind of this interest in that. And so kind of as, I'm figuring out what I wanted to do, I thought initially I wanted to go into some sort of business type thing and started as an accountant for a year and really just realized like, no, I think really the law is the way I want to go. It's not, it wasn't fulfilling doing accounting. And, I kind of recalled my experience with my, the lawyer and going through that process and decided that, I think maybe this is more the route that I want to go. And because of that interest. And so that's why after being an accountant for a year, I decided to apply for law school and take my exams and everything and started that journey.
That was a beautiful story, man. So you was an accountant, you were pushing numbers before.
I was, yeah. I was
that takes a lot of patience, pushing numbers.
Absolutely. It was not my calling. The interest, I think numbers and strategic thinking and kind of planning things out, I think that is kind of why I had that interest in the accounting initially. But I think the actual pushing of the numbers was not exciting to me. I think more the analysis is, and that's, I really found that in the law. I mean, the law so much is analyzing situations and how it applies, these facts applies to these laws. And so, I think that's why I found such a better fit, that it still is that critical thinking. It's just, applying it differently than moving numbers around.
Right. So you go to law school at Seattle School of Law, right? Seattle University.
At a university, correct? Yeah.
And you were cum laude. Cum laude? Did I say that right?
I think so. Yeah.
You graduated that. So immediately after you get out of law school, you pass the bar. You know precisely personal injury law is what you want to do, or did you go into another field of law before that?
Well, luckily, I was extremely naive when I got out of law school and just started my own law firm from the get-go. You know, I'd done some internships in law school and, you know, I dabbled in different things. And so, you know, I was like, you know what, I know I want to be on my own and be my own boss. And so kind of started out trying out everything from day one. You know, it was, you know, did some business law, did some criminal law, personal injury, you know, other random things that might come up, and to, you know, see where all my interests might be. And, you know, I just kind of found the pull from the personal injury law and ended up starting to really focus on that. And I just found that, you know, like my situation, I was completely innocent in what happened. I was just living my life, and I get into this car accident, and now I'm in this mess that wasn't any of my doing. And, you know, so I could really empathize with that. Additionally, when you have your own business, you know, you find that collecting money is part of owning a business, and it's a lot easier to hand people money than to try and collect money. And so, you know, when you're doing these other kinds of cases, you're asking people money, and you know, so that's obviously a different side of the practice that they don't prepare you for in law school is collecting on bills. And so I think a lot of different things kind of combine to help my journey towards ultimately doing just personal injury. I mean, I'm super proud and happy of all the other experience I have, because, you know, with criminal law, you get a lot more exposure to the courtroom. And so very comfortable in court. Some of the other areas of law, you know, business law, and you just kind of learn, you know, how we need to prove somebody's wage loss claim. You know, if they're a business owner and they have an injury and they can't work, then that's going to impact their wage loss, which is different than somebody who's just a W-2 employee. And so seeing the inner workings of companies is really, you know, show me how, you know, there's different ways to prove your loss of income. And so I'm super glad that I have such a broad amount of experience in different areas of the law, so because it's all been able to apply to personal injury.
Understanding is what comes across when I hear you have a clear understanding of different sectors of the law, you know, understanding how it works. And what I find most striking about everything is that you resorted back to that time when you were in the accident and remembering the struggles and everything that you went through, having that clear understanding. And with your practice, how important is understanding what an injured person is actually experiencing and not just the case?
It's crucial, because most of the time somebody isn't walking around with their arm in a cast. They're not, you know, bleeding constantly or something like that. So you don't generally see the injuries. And so understanding that just because the person sitting across from the table from you looks fine doesn't mean they are fine. And with that, then there becomes so many other things that people don't realize. You know, like that pain can cause frustration, and it can cause, you know, anxiety, it can cause stress that then impacts relationships, your job, your friendships, things like that. And so being able to understand that and let people know, like, hey, it's okay. You know, it's okay to have these frustrations, and know that, like, I can empathize with what you're going through. And then it can also help people relay that to the loved ones in their life, and just say, like, hey, yeah, I'm not frustrated with you. It's, you know, it's hard to explain, but if you have this constant aching pain in your back, yeah, it's going to stress you out. And so that's why maybe I'm losing my patience with you, or maybe it's taking me longer to get my work done. That it's because of this, even though you look at me and I look like I'm fine, but I'm in pain, I'm going through this. And so helping people understand that, and when they can explain it to people, because a lot of times people, they don't connect them in themselves either. They just think that, gosh, maybe I'm just being a jerk lately and I don't know why. And so being able to explain it to people and so they can relate to others definitely helps them through that process. I mean, it's really what, we do more than anything is helping people through their injury. It's not, the legal part of it is the legal part of it, and it's an important part, but generally that's not the issue. It's pretty clear who caused the injury. And so it's more of the injury side of it. Dealing with that and getting people better is really where, the time and energy is spent, because that is the greatest impact. There isn't a question that we're fighting in court of, well, should they have not rear-ended you? It's like, yeah, they shouldn't rear-end you. That's pretty clear. And so there are other things that come from that is really what the practice of personal injury law is really about.
Right. Well said, Matt. And to relate, to add on to what you were saying, being a victim of, I've had several car accidents, but this latest one, when you don't expect it, when you are just minding your business and all of a sudden you're upended and spinning around, and you realize, hey, I've been hurt. And you said something that was triggering when you said how you treat people when you're in an accident, the pain. You look fine, but they don't understand the nerve damage, how the vertebrae the nerve may be caught up into the vertebrae, running down your arms and legs and sending this shooting pain whenever you get a moment of excitement, or you get agitated. You keep going through those mood swings. So yeah, man, totally being able to understand that is awesome. I think that's awesome. Being of service, what does truly serving a client mean to you? What does that personally mean to Justin?
So our slogan is guiding people from injury to recovery. And, I came up with that somewhat recent, last year or so, because when I step back and realize what we do, I can't go to treatment for people. If they're in pain, they have to do that for themselves. And so, my role is kind of guiding them through this process and making sure that, they're getting the treatment they need, that the bills are getting paid, that they're getting treated fairly, and that they're understanding that they're on a journey. So ideally, when somebody leaves our representation, they've recovered from their injuries. That's kind of probably some people ask, well, what do you consider success or a victory? I mean, there's going to be money that would be paid. If you're not at fault and there's insurance policies, the money will come. And so it's more about, what are you going to do about somebody's injuries and making sure they're better? Because that can be lifelong lasting if that's not dealt with appropriately. And so, I really think that that's kind of one of the overarching themes for our cases is, what do I do to get people better? That's priority number one. Everything else, will kind of fall into place. And so that's really what we focus on is how can we get people better? How can we, help them find the resources to make that happen, and kind of, encourage them to, sometimes people really, they don't know what to do, especially if it's their first injury. People might think, well, I've been injured before, I just kind of got better, or, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is just life. You just have to be in pain. And so kind of relating to them, like, it's okay to be vulnerable for a little bit. You see that, probably more so with men as well. It's like, well, I'm tough, I whatever, this is, I play football. And so it's like, yeah, and sometimes people, they just magically get better, but others don't. And so, it's kind of being okay with that and letting people know, like, hey, it's okay to take some time for yourself and to go through this process of getting the treatment and making a priority to get better. We're all busy. We all have a million things going on in our life. And so, it's kind of giving them permission sometimes to to go through that journey of getting better and getting the treatment they need. And so it's helping them through all those different parts of it.
Yeah, you speak the tenacity that you have. I know that being a victim of a car accident, there are many things that, like you said, you never ever forget. I can remember all my accidents. I don't forget anything of them. Where did you develop that fight in you necessary to take on insurance companies? I mean, I know what you had to deal with as a youth, and that seems to have stuck with you. But as you got into law and knowing the ins and outs of it, where did that fight come from?
I mean, I don't know, maybe somebody call it jaded, but a nice way I think of putting it is more just kind of over time realizing the reality of the system that we're in. I think that I can generally be pretty agreeable and find common ground with people. And, so I think, I'm naive getting into it thinking, well, if I explain to the insurance adjuster, here's the situation, here's my client's injuries, that, you know what, they're going to understand that. They're going to be, sympathetic and agreeable to me. And we just kind of work things out. But I learned pretty early on that no, they're trained to disagree with everything. And just for fun, it seems like, there's a lot of times no rhyme or reason on why some of the things they fight us on. And so just over time, you just kind of learn that, okay, well, that's how they're trained. That's what they're told to do. Don't take it personally, but that's why we have lawsuits, and that's why we have court and judges and juries and things like that, because ultimately they're the ones making the decision on what is fair. And so, it doesn't even really cross my mind anymore to think about, well, okay, it's a bad offer. All right, file a lawsuit and we'll go down that road. It's more just, that accepting that that's how it's going to be, instead of getting frustrated by the process and what are you talking about? Why are you doing this? Let's be fair. Let's be reasonable. Insurance companies aren't fair and reasonable. That's not in their slogan or their motto or anything like that, is to be fair and reasonable. And so it's all right, let's push forward. And, once you've been doing this for a while, and I've been doing this for, 19 years, there isn't kind of any hesitation. It's okay, we just push forward and we'll be the ones that are in charge of the way things are resolved. We aren't letting the insurance company dictate, okay, here's what the settlement is going to be. We're deciding what the settlement is going to be. And, if that means getting to a judge, a jury, an arbiter, then so be it. And so that's just kind of how we just process through things and just keep going. And if at some point they want to be fair and reasonable and offer something, okay, great, we'll settle it. But that's not, the mindset going into it is we're going all the way. And if they convince us otherwise at some point, then okay, we'll stop pushing.
Right. The key word is coming up for me right now is pushing. On the opposite end, the insurance companies are pushing numbers back so they don't have to pay. It's interesting when you use the term they're playing some type of game. It's when people buy insurance, they buy insurance to be protected. They think if an accident happens, no one wants to get into an accident. If an accident happens, they've been paying into that insurance and have a right to that money. And the insurance companies seem to want to just hold on to everything and pay out as little as possible, which in fact is robbing a person of their rights. And they're blessed to have someone like you and others that stand up and fight for that part of truth for individuals. The impact, you talked about impact. Beyond the settlements and verdicts, what impact does Elsner Law leave on people's lives?
Well, nobody's ever happy they got in a car accident. It's never when you get your settlement, oh, wow, this was worth it. I'm glad this happened to me. But as best we can, try and make their life better from it. And so there have been situations where, we get people settlements and, they, someone, they go on a nice vacation. Sometimes people, though, they've been able to pay off their student loans or put a down payment on a house, things like that, where they're able to take something that was a painful negative in their life and ultimately leave us on a positive note. And I think that's where I get a lot of satisfaction as well, is when they leave healthy, and then when they're able to use this as a positive at the end of the day to move forward in their life, to have a better life, and really just kind of make them the most of what was a situation that nobody plans for. Nobody says, well, hey, this is a good time. Let's go ahead and get a car accident today. I think I'm ready for it. I'm not too busy. Let's go ahead and have that happen today. So, it's a complete interruption in their life. And so when we ultimately have some sort of positive going away, I mean, it kind of feels like you're breaking up with somebody, but in a positive way, when they're leaving you. Some of these people, been in our lives for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. If they drag on into litigation and they've had multiple years of treatment, and so it's always sad to see a client go, but obviously that's part of the process. But if I can leave them with, hey, I'm going to be able to do something ultimately positive in my life as a result of this, then I gain a lot of satisfaction from that.
Right. And in your case, I know that you've developed great friendships with individuals, because at the end of the day, regardless of how you met in professional work or in sports or in education, people become friends, and you seem to have carried on, friendships with people because of the environment in which you provided for them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's great as well. I mean, there's some people that, and I guess that you realize like how long you've been doing it when you help them, and then maybe you help their kids later on and things like that when they start driving, and and so there's that. And then I mean, like if I if I have an issue with my HVAC system, I've got somebody to call, and so you learn, you gain some connections, you gain friendships, and then you find people. I like if somebody, I'm a small business. And so if somebody's a small business owner that comes to me, if I can possibly utilize their business in the future, I will. I've had people who wash windows that, are a client, and now they wash my windows. And, with HVAC people, same thing. When it's time to be serviced, I know who to call. And so it's great to create those friendships that, you become friends, and then also being able to give back to support their business the way they supported mine as well. And so you have your whole community of people that are friends, as well as, being able to patronize their business, is a great way to kind of keep the community going and keep the community alive, is that we're all supporting each other.
That's beautiful, man. That's a beautiful story. So you've built this firm for nearly 20 years. 20 years you've been in business, and you've survived through COVID, through all of those things. What's next for Justin Elsner, for Justin Elsner Law?
If I just keep growing, I think what we try and relay to our employees is that, we do really good work, and we really do help people. And so the more people that we can serve, I think the better that, we're helping our community. And so we try to serve as many people as possible, and want to continue to serve as many people as possible. I think long-term, maybe 10, 15 years down the road, I'd probably like to get into teaching. When I was in undergraduate school, I was a teaching assistant and helped one of my professors. And so I definitely found an interest in that. And I think that, I think it's good when you've, had dozens of years of practice to give back. See, teaching is not a high paid profession. And I think it's more of a, people who teach do it from the heart. And so I think there's a part of me that, at some point in the latter part of my career, I'll probably get into teaching and trying to educate either maybe law students, maybe undergraduate, about the law and about owning and running a business and serving your community, and the importance of, as a business person to, take care of your community. One of our big events, there's a parade that goes by our office. It's actually tomorrow. And we put on a whole kids zone with a petting zoo and bounce house and all kinds of games. And, I think if you're going to be part of a community, part of it is giving back to that community, because it helps. It helps. I mean, that's what a community is. It's a group of people, with a common interest. And so to give back and kind of be able to teach that to people, I think sometimes that's lost. And so I think, at some point, I'll probably get into some sort of teaching to spread what I know about the law, about owning a business, and about being a good community member.
Oh man, that's you said so much there, and I know you're going to get to it later, but that's totally a Loudr lawyer. What you just talked about, community is everything. Giving back, something that you do naturally. You expanded on wanting to teach later, to be able to teach people how to do a business, and that's remarkable. Speaking of businesses, you've been in business 20 years. We've established that. What types of methods of marketing or business? How have you grown? You're in 4 different locations in Washington now, correct? And you're also in Idaho and Oregon. Right? In addition to Washington.
Yes, I just recently got my licenses in both those states for a couple of different reasons. As we spread out through Washington, those are bordering states. And so, I've had a few people where, they live here and they get in a crash in the bordering states. And, before I've had to turn them away. And so, I decided to go ahead and start, expanding my licensure. And so I can help those people as well. My journey started with Craigslist. I mean, that's how I started. My very first ads were on Craigslist. It was a free listing. I have the pictures. When I got out of law school, obviously I was completely broke. I started practicing law out of my apartment. I'd been in law school, got a fax machine and computer, and I was working out of my apartment. And so it was, trying to find some free ads. And, Craigslist was great. And, I think it's died down a little bit, but also with Craigslist, it was a lot of just random calls and things like that. And so over time, we get a lot of clients that are past clients referring us, have some, different businesses in the area, where it be chiropractors or body shops or things like that, that might send us some cases, some referrals where they know we're going to do good work. And so, they may give our name out. There's, the bar associations have referral networks. It's building with connections with other attorneys that, we can, because same thing, people ask me, hey, I need a family law attorney. I need a business attorney. And so, I now have those connections as well. And so I can send people to people that do good work, and they'll send, work our way as well. And just kind of building our online presence, that's, as time goes on, people are online a lot more and using that. And so doing what we can to build our online presence, whether it be some social media or, doing, working on our Google business profile and, getting more reviews on Google and Yelp and things like that, that all helps. Now, I heard stats that it used to be, 20 years ago, 4 touches. So somebody would have to see you 4 different times before they would make a call. And now I've heard it's upwards of 20. And so people are just bombarded with so much information and so many ads and things like that, that, if they see you on Facebook and then they look at your website and then they go to YouTube to watch your videos. And then, maybe they also recognize you because they saw some, billboard or what have you. And then, maybe they saw, some community event that you sponsored. And so it really takes everything now to get through all the noise so that people, make a decision. And there are a lot more informed decisions now. It started out, lawyer advertising was the phone book. And so people just had to decide who's got the prettiest ad in the phone book, and that's who they would call. And now they can really get a good sense of who they're hiring. Because if somebody is doing an effective job marketing, they're really getting themselves out there and providing a lot of knowledge to people. And so, there isn't one silver bullet. It's all of the above, I think, is what it takes these days to get yourself out there to market.
Right. I see you. I see you sitting there. I see the attorney. I see Justin, the individual. I see Justin, the businessman. So I can see you going through those different things as you reflect on the billboards and all the different advertisements. You said you started out in Craigslist. What was next? How did you be able to cut through all the noise that and stand out?
I mean, I think it just has taken years, honestly. It's you can do more content, but you can only do so much content at once. And as that grows and as you learn things, I think it's taken a lot of years to build the knowledge that I have too. You don't learn it overnight, and you don't learn some of the tricks of the trade overnight. That definitely takes years. And so, I think it's Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book talking about 10,000 hours it takes to become, proficient or an expert in something. And I think it makes sense. Like, it takes, ultimately, you got to do the work. And if you don't do the work, you're not going to learn the law. You're not going to learn the processes. You're not going to learn that, with a Geico case, 99% of the time we're going to file a lawsuit, because that's just how Geico works. And it's nothing personal to the client. And so I can tell the client from day one, hey, if it's a Geico case, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to have to file a lawsuit. That's just the reality of it. So, you just kind of learn those things over time, and you're able to share that knowledge with people. And then that's how they gain your trust, when they're like, okay, if he knows that kind of detail about what goes on in the insurance process of things, then yeah, he must be doing this stuff for quite a while. So I think it's all those things kind of building over time.
Yes. You mentioned that you started out in the apartment and you were doing everything, secretary, the paralegal side, everything, with barely any help. How many employees do you have today?
We've got about half a dozen people helping me out now. So it's great. I mean, I love that I have that knowledge, because I still know how to use a fax machine. I had to learn that, but now I haven't sent a fax in, I don't know, 10 or 10 years probably. And so, but having those basic knowledges and starting at zero, I think is absolutely important, because if you just kind of jump in the deep end, then you don't realize, what it takes to do some of those more basic things, or the time that's involved, or the issues that come up with it. And so, I think my journey has been great, because it has slowly over time gone from I'm doing every single little thing to, getting a little bit of support, a little bit more. So my first employee is my sister, and my sister started working for me probably about 15 years ago, and her kids were little. And so she didn't have a lot of time, and I didn't have enough work to pay her full time. I didn't have the money to pay her full time. And as her kids grew, she increased her hours as she had more availability, as they became more independent. And now that's, they're one's finishing college and the other was working now, she's full time and has been for quite a while. But, that journey that she's gone on with me has been great, and having that support, and then, kind of working together to build her and her knowledge and things like that has been great. It's amazing to have your family work with you, and
wow, yeah,
I'm helping support her, and keeping helping my sister have employment. So it's also been a great journey that we've been on.
Yeah, that's truly a blessing, man, and it shows where your heart is, where you live. If you were paying attention, the acronym in your name has basically been your journey. J for journey. The U, the understanding. You understanding the different aspects of law and understanding what's important to the individual that has been impacted by the accident from your past. and being able to relate to that. The S for service, being of service, community, and what you just mentioned about your sister, helping family, helping to support and being able to work alongside of that. T, the tenacity, the grit that you have that's inside of you, that fight to face whatever is there happening. Speaking of which, I'll ask you after I do this, the I for impact. You understand the impact of things and you pull that together. And then next, you're living it, the actions, the steps, you know that you have to expand, help your clients. You're in Oregon. The future, do you see you opening offices in Oregon or Idaho, being able to help people, bringing on other attorneys to help you in those areas?
I think so. Yeah. If you try and look for the positives in any type of situation, the good thing with COVID, I would say, is that it made us a lot more nimble, and it's a lot more online, and people, want to, meet us through Zoom and through email and phone call. And when we think about it, we've always used to, the old way was everybody comes into the office. And, when you think about it, half the time people don't have a car that's working. Their car was just damaged, totaled, whatever. And so it's a huge inconvenience, or they're trying to get to medical appointments, plus get their kids to school, plus go to work. And so we've really become a lot more of an online law firm of just being able to do everything online. And so expanding into Oregon and Idaho, I think makes sense from being able to serve more people. And then, just because of the last few years of the way technology has been, I think logistically makes it possible as well. I think that's obviously if we open a new office, I'm going to be the one manning it from the beginning. And so, it has to fit with my schedule of being able to do that, but being able to do the vast majority of things online. Even courts now, most things are online. It definitely allows us to expand more and serve more people in that regard. And so, yeah, I think that definitely is part of the plan is trying to build out some more offices into Oregon and Idaho, and probably start towards the border between Oregon and Idaho and Washington, and then start, building ourselves south and east and getting more throughout the states to absolutely help people everywhere.
Yeah. How many cases are you bringing in now on an average?
It really varies from month to month. We're definitely in a growth trajectory. And so, it just keeps going up. And so we just kind of keep trying to grow even more and add more people. And, probably end up actually adding a lawyer soon. I've been considering that. And actually, one thing I'm actually thinking about that is just hiring a law student and getting them trained. And so that I can train them on what we do. And so, sometimes people bring their ideas from different ways and their ways of doing things from different firms. And so I think for us, it's going to be best to bring somebody on fresh and teach them from day one on what exactly we think that is the best way of doing things.
The Elsner Law blueprint, the blueprint right there that you've so diligently worked on. When you hear the term Loudr Lawyer, what does Loudr Lawyer mean to you? I've listened to you throughout this interview process, this conversation, I should say, and you're. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Sure. So, I think people might, their gut reaction might just be, being loud, like just, the most noise. But I think really it's about sorting through the noise, because there is so much noise out there, especially as we get into AI. That's becoming more and more of a thing of people wanting to solve all their problems through AI. And, it's kind of scary, the information that AI gives out. And so, I think it's being louder is more about being heard and being, being a resource and being kind of like we're loud in that you can trust us, you can find us, you can believe us. And it's not a volume thing. It's an informational thing, an impact thing. It's more about how you can give the right advice, the good advice, because there's a lot of just wrong information out there. And like I said, with the AI, it's getting worse. And so the information that people relate to me is just inaccurate. So I think it's you can be a Loudr lawyer by getting the right information and being like, okay, this one stands out because they're correct and they're hearing us and they're listening to us, and that's really how you're being louder. It's not by a volume; it's by an impact.
By an impact. There's that word again, man. Told you, Justin. Thank you. Oh, before we sign off, how do people find you?
So you can find us on elsnerlawfirm.com. They can always call us to at 206-447-1425. We always get free consultations. I tell people, call me before there's a problem. I'd rather prevent a problem than try and clean up a mess. And so, I know a lot of times people are scared to call lawyers and think maybe we're intimidating, but I'd say reach out to us. That's the best way to go. And if we can help you out, great. If not, maybe we can steer you in the right direction to get the help you need.
That's very nice, man. Justin, thank you so much for being a part of the Loudr Lawyer Network. You are what makes this job worth it, man. Hearing your story, seeing your journey, it's inspiring and empowering. And I know it'll definitely touch someone out there.
Thank you. It's really been a great pleasure speaking with you today.
All right, hold on, I'll be right back.
Thanks for being a part of the Loudr Lawyer Network. If you're enjoying the conversation, let us know. Give us a like and subscribe to never miss a thing. We'll see you next time right here on the Loudr Lawyer Network.